Hello. You're muted.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I brought you flowers for you. It actually dried already. These have been flowers for my birthday. Good to see you,
Oh,
Queen.
that's right. You're a Cancer. Or wait, what?
No,
No, you're
I
not a
had
Cancer.
like,
You're a Gemini. Oh, so those
yeah,
are
I'm
like
a
old.
Gemini.
Those are like
Like
seriously
wrong
old.
personality. What's happening here?
I know. I was like,
Oh,
wait, you're no, you're I was getting it confused because you have Scorpio energy, Scorpio rising, right?
mm, yeah, I know. Well, by the way, talking about astrology, I just discovered there's apparently one way you can look at astrology from an ancient Egyptian point of view. So every single zodiac has practically three subforms in it. So depending on which part of your zodiac sign you had been born in, I think it's called something like the cardinal astrology or
Hmm.
real. It's like really interesting. Robert Edward Grant talks about it. He's really great. So good to see you.
Yeah, good to see
How do
you
you feel?
too.
How did you like the meditation?
Oh my gosh, The Alchemist. It is like such an ass kicker. Oh my God. It is crazy. That meditation is crazy town. Woo!
What happened? What happened in this 1 hour long session for you?
I just felt so like not in my head,
Mm,
just so in a totally different state of being than my usual state of being. And I've had this sensation before. I felt it really strong in this one. Okay, so you know how like he tells you to, I don't know if he uses the word dissolve in this meditation, but basically you're tuning in, you're doing that divergent focus where you're
yeah.
focusing on the area around your body instead of inside of your body. And and I feel like we're sensitive like right here, right, just on the outside of our
Mm,
body. We
hmm.
can feel heat, we can feel wind,
Yes.
and we can, how you can get like long distance tickled, especially when you're a little
Mm,
kid, and somebody could even like come up behind your back. You don't see them coming, but you can like kind of
yes.
feel it,
You feel the energy.
yeah. So I know that it makes sense to me that I can sense right here. And I like how he
Mm,
asked you to do that because I feel like that is the doorway to the blackness, just right here. And so if I really tune in to that area right on the perimeter of my body,
mm,
like just outside of my body, I feel like
mm.
it's this portal and it can take me into the room that I'm in right now, or it can take me into the solid blackness. And so I just felt like I was so using that as a portal. And I just kept tuning into it and kept accidentally going into the room that I was in and then coming back in and then dissolving into the blackness.
Okay, now you have to share, obviously, where did this portal lead you?
Well, it leads me into the blackness. It leads me into
Mm,
the quantum and the the concept of okay, how atoms are 99.9999% space.
mm,
You've heard that, and that's something that Dr. Joe talks about a lot. And in that, even though I've been hearing that for months now, it really just clicked with me after seeing the Source documentary. And then I've also, because I'm going to uh the retreat in a couple of months, I've been watching that the training that they give you. I forget
mm.
what's it called, the progressive. Yeah, so I've been doing the online progressive training, and then I've also just been watching all this Dr. Joe stuff. So it's like all of these concepts are really really clicking with me at
Mhm.
a deeper level because of that. And so that idea that the atoms are 99.999% space, and so therefore they're just this tiniest little percentage of matter, But when we look at things, we think we're just seeing the matter, you know? And so it's just because of the way that our eyes perceive light. Like we are not able to perceive that fast moving vibration of the energy. And so, but it's there, you know, like the quantum field is right there. The quantum field is like right here. It's inside of our bodies. It's everywhere. We just have to mentally remove all of the matter. If we remove all of the matter, all of the air, every single thing that is in our 3D reality, what's left is quantum energy. And so I feel like that portal is leading me into the reality where it's just nothing but energy. And in all of the, like I'm only sensing the energy. I'm only sensing the 99.999% energy that is there, rather than this illusion where I'm perceiving just this tiniest little percentage of matter.
That was so splendidly explained. Honestly, that was so good. And I have to admit, I think I haven't, like, I definitely didn't go to the quantum in this meditation. I think I find it so hard for me to get the portal. And what you just described of really, like, I kind of struggled to focus on the area around my body, but what you just explained and how you explained it is so helpful that I'm sure that it'll help me in the next meditation to really focus on the little space beyond. It's not like at the like somewhere completely different, just like going one step further to start this process. So thank you for sharing. I really hope that whoever is watching and who also struggled and to get towards a space, that we can leverage the portal that you just opened up for us. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
And by the way, would you like to quickly share regarding the material that you received in advance to the progressive retreat? What kind of material do you get? Do you get like a daily routine that you should follow regarding breathwork meditation? Because I've never went to Dr. Joe retreat. So how does that look like? How do you prepare?
Well, I'm only 3 trainings into it, and they won't let you advance to the next training until you complete the one you're on. So I don't know how long it is. I don't know what all is going to be involved with it. What I have seen so far is 3 talks that he gave at Unity Church in Austin, Texas. And Unity Church is really cool. It's like a progressive church that I know they're in Texas. I don't know if they're anywhere else in the U.S., but they're just an extremely open-minded, really cool church, and kind of Christian based. They borrow from Christian teachings, but it's unity. You know, it's like unifying all of the teachings and all of the teachings from all of the religions, and so it makes sense that they would have Dr. Joe there as a guest. And I'm thinking that these talks were probably done like 10 years ago. And it was definitely before he was really big. But he's a great speaker. And so there are these just 1-hour talks, and he's kind of, I mean, like how would I sum it up? I mean, it's like almost 4 hours of lecture that I've watched. And so it's just going a little deeper into all of the stuff that you hear all the time, like the way that he's really trying to drive home the way that our bodies have been conditioned to the way that we think. And so like just when we are focusing on things that are stressful, we are taking energy from the quantum field around us and taking energy from within our bodies and turning that into hormones and compounds and tension in the body. And so basically we're taking that energy that could be used for so many different things, and we are converting it into matter. And those hormones train our body, and our bodies become addicted to the hormones. And we just we unconsciously want to keep the same patterns of thought and patterns of behavior going, so that we can stay in the same reality and we can keep being fed those same hormones that our bodies are addicted to. So he's really going in deep, from what I've seen so far, really going in deep into those concepts, just to help people understand that they're creating all of this, and if they feel stuck, it's because they've gotten themselves stuck. And so, how do you think about it
How do
differently?
you
So,
unstuck? How to get unstuck? That's obviously okay. Your jaw is like absolutely impressive. I
I know I drink a lot of water.
love it. It's like a perfect jaw for a smoothie or juice in the morning, what you have over there with a
Uh-huh.
straw.
Yeah, I have a green smoothie this size. It's
Oh,
32 ounces. I have a green smoothie every day, almost every day, this size, and probably like 3 jars of this water.
mm, love it. Beautiful one. Cheers.
Yeah, so the formula, according to the source documentary, is heart brain coherence. And
Mm.
that's why we did the Alchemist. And that was your suggestion. Did you know that the Alchemist was for heart brain coherence? Did you know that? Or did you
Not
just
necessarily. Not necessarily. I actually, it's so funny because I was suggesting heart-brain coherence because I know that there is meditation that is called heart-brain coherence. So I was
mm-hmm.
not aware that you were finding ultimately the Alchemist because I had done both meditations. I've done heart-brain coherence and the Alchemist at some other point in time. And I really love like the energy of the Alchemist, like the sounds, they're so potent and so powerful. They're just like, I don't know, like a spiral just sucking you in. It's like so powerful. What was quite interesting is I think in meditation, we also, when we don't go all the way, we just get, we just repeat the things that we have fed our brain throughout the day in a different way. So today I really looked into geometrical forms and numerology and the patterns, how you can perceive reality in a different way. And they were like, it was the first time in meditation that so many different geometrical patterns were popping up and things were being connected. And I was sitting there like, I know I should see nothing, but it's really interesting. And then I'm going to let them go. So that was, yeah, something also witnessed.
You felt like
Interesting.
you were seeing visuals, like the geometric patterns were coming up while you were
Yes.
meditating?
Yes, like 3D objects spinning in space, for example. Like that was quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't see a lot of visuals like that. Um I really don't. And I wonder if there must be something in me that needs to be unlocked. Something that needs to be cleared or unlocked or something. I don't know. I don't know. I can only imagine what it is, but I hope it'll come, where I'm
It
just
will
really
come.
seeing with these eyes.
Yes.
And even if my eyes are closed, but that I'm like have the sensation of seeing with my physical eyes.
Mhm.
And because I've had that experience on drugs and it's fantastic, like, it's awesome, it's like so fun, like to see kaleidoscopes and all of that.
Mhm.
And not a lot, but I have
Mhm.
dabbled. And so, but I hear about people in breath work seeing kaleidoscopes, and I totally want to see that.
So one thing, because I haven't seen these geometrical forms prior as well, I think what kind of unlocked the first step for me, oh, sorry about this, moving camera, was listening to some of Robert Edward Grant's teachings because he really is a numerologist, but he's like also going into ancient Egypt, even though he's like he had been business person prior. So he is pretty fantastic how he starts to connect geometrical forms with mathematics, and just listening to his talks is so eye-opening. And I felt as if something clicked in like in a subconscious on a subconscious level just by expanding my perception. But anyways, I have a folder with a lot of geometrical forms and solids, etc., etc. I'm happy to share the folder with you. It's quite mind expanding. But what was interesting was I was actually seeing because I'm here at the moment in this building, and I started to see like a huge geometrical form around it. Like it was as if they were layered on top of each other. And I was like, this is not the best frequency, FY. And I was like, okay, but I created this. So this was like quite interesting when you perceive yourself in this in your own bubble of energy that you create within a greater fields that are spinning around. Yeah, it's really interesting what I'm showing here on YouTube at this point in time. But that was the first one. That was definitely the first time. Yeah. And one thing I
Cool.
wanted um to share, because it popped up as a thought when you talked about the fact that 99% of all matter is just empty space and only 1% is matter ultimately. It reminded me of something I came across today regarding water and how water stores frequencies and images and intentions and thoughts. And it became so clear that water, water itself, of course, has a lot of empty space as well. But what you see ultimately is the result of a certain intention, of a certain emotion, of a certain XYZ.
Yes.
And when you talked about the fact that, for example, these red flowers here, they are 99% empty space, I thought, okay, so it's practically just the emotion. It's just the intention that is rearranging the little matter that exists to the entire perception that we have. I thought it was really powerful to become aware, like, all that we see is so much the result of the intention, emotion behind it. I think it can be a very powerful way to perceive reality. That was something I wanted to share regarding 99%.
Yes, it's so powerful. And that's to me, it's this really important key to understanding that you can create your own reality. It's really important just to see that, like, when you're working with the energy rather than working with the matter, you have so much more control. You have so much more influence when you're trying to move the energy, rather than practically step by step trying to change the matter, like on purpose, trying to change people's minds, trying to take the steps, like that. It just takes forever. It obviously works, but it takes forever. And that's what our whole medical system is based on, like manipulating the matter, introducing these drugs into people's bodies, or introducing, food or substances into people's bodies to cause all of this change. Or you can just intentionally change it with your mind. And then that's why people can go to a retreat for 7 days and heal their stage 4 cancer, because the mind is that powerful.
Would you, by the way, like to share, I don't know whether you want to share it, but before we started this recording, you shared a little bit about the journey with, like, the retreat and meditation and cancer, etc., etc. Would you like to share a little bit of what you shared prior? Because I found it very moving, and I think it can be very empowering and heart-opening to listen to what you just shared, actually.
You mean before, like when we were talking with Christina earlier, what I talked about? Yes. So yeah, I'm going to be going to the retreat in Dallas in August, in less than 2 months. And I felt, when I first found out about the retreats, I've only been studying Dr. Joe this year in 2024. And so it was like at the end of January, my first meditation with Dr. Joe, with the group. And so, so shortly thereafter, I found out about the retreats, and I thought it sounded really fascinating, but I just found out about how much it was, and, just felt like it was out of reach. And then a month or two later, I found out about the coherence healings. And when I saw that there were sick people there, specifically people with cancer, then it just made me realize that my experience with trying to heal my husband for 2 years, it makes me like have this incredibly valuable experience that I know that I can help other people with. And if I can have these coherence healing tools and this mind power on top of everything that I learned with my husband, that there's no telling what I could do, and it just made me see so clearly that situation with my husband, because he was trying to heal naturally. And I think it's still a pretty big deal to say that you're going to turn down chemotherapy and that you're going to turn down all traditional oncology treatments. But it's more accepted now than it was 7 years ago when he was diagnosed, much more accepted. And so it was such a leap of faith for us to even choose that path. But he had lost both of his parents to cancer, and his dad died from cancer the day that my husband was diagnosed. Like the very day that we got the diagnosis, we got a call that morning that his dad had passed. and his mom, who was just the sweetest woman. Oh my gosh, we loved that woman so much. She was amazing. She passed 3 years prior to that. And her battle with cancer especially was just so grueling. It was really, really tough. So, he saw both of his parents go through the traditional oncology route. And at some point, even when his mom was sick, he was like, if I ever get cancer, I'm not getting chemotherapy. I'm not doing it. And we agreed with each other. Like, if it ever happens to us, we're not going to do it. We're going to figure out how to heal naturally. And there's a doctor who lives very close to me, who's still my doctor now, and he treats patients holistically, and he gives them IV therapies, and he's also a traditional doctor, but he does all of these other therapies. He treats with diet supplements and detoxing IVs, and so so we had a good doctor, and I mean, there was a point that I was spending 8 hours a day in the kitchen, just making the most exquisite diet for him. Like, just all of this raw food, all of this juicing. I mean, he had everything that he could possibly want. And we were meditating together. He started meditating when he started feeling sick. We didn't know he had cancer, but he knew it was time to change a lot of things in his life. And by the time at the time he started feeling bad. And so, so we didn't realize that meditation had the power that it did. We were just doing the meditation because we wanted to have peace in our lives. And we wanted to, and that was when I started, getting these downloads from spirit and started having communication with angels and spirit guides. And that was all wrapped up in the same experience, with him getting sick, me getting the downloads. And I would have all these messages for him, and the clarity of my messages meant so much to him. And whereas before he was just kind of agnostic, he was just like, oh, maybe there's something, maybe there isn't. I don't really see how it applies to my life. When he started feeling bad and started realizing that he had made himself sick with all of his stress and all of, all the habits that he had adopted to deal with his stress, over drinking, over smoking, taking pills. Like, he was a mess. He was such a mess. And, and then I was seeing the way that I was contributing to it by being like so stressed out about him all the time. Like, I wasn't alleviating his stress. I was adding more stress. And so, so we were just going through this major awakening, and I would try to find stories online of people who had healed naturally without chemotherapy. And I figured out on my own that the commonality that I could see in all of these people is that they all had faith in a higher power. They had, some of them were Christian, some of them were not, but they all had faith in a higher power. And so, so I knew that much, but I didn't realize that meditation could be the key, but still in that process, I just learned so much about the mental and spiritual journey of healing your body, and what an undertaking it is. And how much you really, like, if your thoughts made you sick, which they always did in every single case, there's always thoughts that are a matching vibration to your illness. So if your thoughts made you sick, and they made you so sick that your body's dying of cancer, then you've got some serious stuff to turn around. You really, really have to reprogram yourself. And he knew that, he totally knew that. But we didn't know what I know now. And even though he didn't make it, even though he was not able to heal, I still have just as much faith now as I did then that it was possible. I mean, I've got more faith now. I have even more faith now. But I always knew it was possible. And I want to do a video on my YouTube about why it is that I think that he was not able to heal. And because he had so many things on his side, there were so many reasons why he technically should have healed. And but when it comes down to it, it's all mental. It's all in your beliefs. And I think that he just wasn't able to get there. He wasn't able to get there mentally to really, really down to his bones believe that it was possible. I think that's kind of the short version of the story of why he wasn't able to heal. He didn't trust himself. He didn't trust himself to have that kind of mind power.
Thank you so much for sharing. And one thing that popped up straight in my mind regarding that, though you had like all of these incredible approaches and tools at hand to help him heal naturally in all possible layers, the first thought I had was, we all do have soul contracts. And
Yes.
as crazy as it sounds, we even have chosen our exit point most likely before we even came
Yes.
here. So my thought was, considering that you are psychic, have you tuned into with him? Like, have you tuned into him like once he hadn't been like physically there and long, had you tuned into his essence or his higher self regarding his contract and what lesson it was for him to learn? Because I think there's so many things that he probably has learned simply purely throughout this process, like so many layers, which are so valuable in whatever else is coming, for you, also for him. So I'm just curious, have you tuned into with him?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, many many times, and not as much as you would think I would, because technically I could like every single day if I wanted to, and but I did several times after he passed, and I remember there was kind of a long period of time where I didn't, and occasionally I would wonder like, why am I not tuning into him? And then I'd be like, oh, on to the next thing, like I just didn't like really, really think about it. But I think there was, I don't know, the best way I can explain it without taking too much time is just that I think that I was not ready to let go of my old self, and something about, because we were both extremely aware that we were creating our own realities, and that we could make anything happen. And then, if he's passed on, of course he knows that, better than I could ever know it, being in human form. And so I think there was something just on an unconscious level. I think that I wasn't quite ready to be seen by someone who was like that close to me, knows me that well, and that aware. I think there was something about me. It's like I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to let go. I didn't want to let go of all of. Basically, I didn't want to let go of my compulsion to partner. Like I had this compulsion to partner with men, with like, basically I was trying to replace him. I was trying to replace my husband.
Okay, thank you for explaining. I really wasn't sure what you were
Yes,
referring to.
it was yes. So it was a compulsion to partner with men, and at that point in my life, partnering with men meant shutting down my conscience. Like I had to disregard my own boundaries and my own my own standards. I had to lower my standards and disregard my and of course this is, it sounds like I'm admitting to being totally mentally ill, but this is me.
No, honestly, you just sound to me like a lot of how women feel, and like you just sound to me like, okay, this is how it sounds like when you are still in the process of becoming worthy, of letting go of the things that made you think you would need to lower your standard. I think you just verbalize, you just have the courage and the reflection to say out loud things, and I think it sounds very much aligned with most sane people out there. So all good.
Yeah. Well, I guess that I'm saying this in retrospect. Like this is, this is the hindsight is 2020. I can see it perfectly now. But at the time I wasn't saying, I wasn't conscious of like saying like, I'm going to lower my standards so that I can continue to see this guy. And I'm going to shut out the wisdom of my late husband, so that I can continue to do it. I wasn't conscious of what I was doing, I really wasn't. But looking back on it, I see that that was I think that it just helps to explain why it was that I didn't tune into him more. But as I've tuned, he's been gone for over 5 years now. And as I've tuned into him over the years, I see how his vibration as a being that has passed on has changed over time. Like he has separated.
How has that changed? What change have you perceived?
He has separated from his human self more and more. It's like he has become more pure spirit. And so when I sense him now, I see him in different, I see beings in different parts of my energy field according to what part of my life they apply to and whether they're coming from the future or the past. And so just comparatively to how I first saw him to how I see him now, I first saw him it was almost like he was in my body. It was like he had become a part of me. It was like I had absorbed his energy and he was facing out, looking at the world with me. And it was like very comforting. It was like he needed me and I needed him. And so in this area, he would be like in my second chakra, so like in relationships and in romance, he was there in my second chakra and he was on the side of my past. And so I saw him there for probably a year, and he was like going through life with me. And then I saw him in a few different places for different reasons. But now where I see him is in my crown chakra in the future. And so he is like so elevated and so wise, and he's like truly a spirit guide for me, and he like is going to continue to be with me. And what you said about soul contracts is so right on. Even though he was agnostic, he was really so intuitive. He was so creative. He could write a new song every day. He would just have genius ideas all the time. So he totally had a connection to spirit, even though he didn't cultivate it and he wasn't really aware of it. And he used to say, we met when we were in our early 20s, and he used to say that he thinks he's going to die young. He always said that. He said that for the first 10 years that we were together. And after a while, he was like, maybe I should stop saying that. And I was like, yeah, maybe you should. So he didn't say it anymore, but for 10 solid years, he was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die young.
Wow.
He always had that feeling. And he was 47 when he died, which isn't, to a kid, it seems really old, but to us at the time, he seemed really young, very, very young. Like he technically should have had a lot of life left in him. So yeah, I've thought of that so many times. Like, even though I was tuning into spirit every day when he was sick, I was like getting directions on what he needed to do next for his healing. And when he would do something, it would help, like, even though we had, and then plus just all of like, this doctor was amazing, and I was just researching like crazy. And, he had so much help and so much support. But when it comes down to it, the momentum wasn't there. The momentum was heading in an opposite direction. It was heading towards him passing. And one thing I can see now is that I feel like he is able to help and influence more people now from his position now than he would have if he was still in his human form. And then my life is, of course I can't change. I would love to have him back, but I know that, I I don't know. I've never held on to that. Just like, oh, if I could just have him back. Like it was just so clear right from the beginning. Can't do anything about this. Like they're like, I can never have him back. There's nothing to do but accept it. And so with that said, I have had such amazing experiences since I've been single, like amazing experiences, not nonstop, but like a handful of, probably like 10 things that I could name, mostly to do with men, that like I never would have had those experiences if I was still with him. I never would have had anything close to those experiences, and those experiences have just made me a different person, Just being a single woman for over 5 years has made me such a different person, such a different person. And maybe I would have gotten to this place eventually, but it was like a fast track to growth, being single. And so that's an incredible thing.
It absolutely is. And what do you love most about the person that you are today? What do you love most about you, the new queen, the new version that you revealed and like peeled off and just brought to the light throughout all of these processes?
I feel like I have this vivaciousness and wildness. That I just love. Like it's like just this excitement and energy and just silliness and and really just kind of wild. I mean, really wild compared to how I was before, And I mean, I think compared to a lot of people, I'm like extremely boring and stable, but like I'm mostly just here with my kids all the time, just being a mom. And I've lived in the same house for 18 years and I live in a really small town, and I never go out. And, so I'm like really, really stable and calm compared to a lot of people. But compared to what I was when I was married, I speak my truth in a way that shocks people. And
for example, would you like to share an example? I'd love to hear an anecdote, please.
Well, I mean, just like watch my whole YouTube. It's like just like nothing but me just like talking, and I know that I'm saying things that are completely out there. Whereas before, when I was married, just putting a spiritual affirmation on my refrigerator, like was such a mental hurdle. Just thinking like, what if somebody comes over and sees it and, they're going to think I'm weird. And, I was just like so closeted compared to how I am now. So yeah, I mean, that's probably the best example, like how freely I speak about my spiritual beliefs and how enthusiastically I speak about it. Whereas when Jason was alive, I was doing spirit readings in those last couple of years. I was doing them at least twice a week for 2 years. And we never told anybody. Like it was the secret. It was an amazing secret, but it was a total secret that I had developed psychic powers. So I mean, you compare that to me videotaping myself doing spirit readings on strangers and putting out there for the whole world to see. Like that's different.
Would you mind me quickly switching locations, by the way?
Yeah. You do that and I'll start talking about some things that I wanted to talk about. Because our plan, we're not sticking to our plan at this point. Our plan was to talk about the documentary because the documentary, the free screening of Source, the film, came out last weekend. So it's been 8 days since they first put it out there for people to see, and I haven't really looked, but I haven't seen yet what people's reactions to it are and what people are saying about it. I've looked a little bit on some forums and in like Joe Dispenza Facebook group, like a study group on Facebook. And so I've seen the reactions of some people who are like really tight in the Joe Dispenza community, but I'm so curious to see what people's reaction is going to be to it at large. And I wanted for us to talk about what how we felt about it. And if you've had a chance to talk to anybody about it, if you've gotten any feedback from people, and because I mean it's some big information that he's putting out there, and it's exciting because the research that he's publishing right now on this documentary is actually very old, and they started compiling this footage 3 years ago. And so they're just kind of putting out there what they feel like people are ready for now, but they have learned so much more in the last 3 years. So I think that what that documentary is talking about has the potential to just really blow people's minds. So so what did you think about it? What's your feedback on it?
That was such a fantastic introduction. Thank you for covering 3 minutes on my basis.
Nice background, Chiara. I like your background.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, I actually really appreciate like natural light, natural light compared to anything else.
Yes.
Thank you. So what I thought, and my first thought, that was so interesting. I was expecting some kind of woo-woo video because it's also how I work. I know it's how you are. It's like how a lot of people in Joe's community become along the journey, because we start to see the changes and the shifts happening. So you're like, oh, anything is possible. And watching the documentary, it's literally science from A to Z. From A to Z. I think they have like 5 doctors in there, high caliber academic researchers. I was sitting there like, okay, that's so interesting. And I would say Dr. Joe's only talking like 5 to 10% of the time. Most of the time, it's literally people and other professionals who are conducting the studies, who are critics and skeptics, just sharing the incredible revelations they had by looking at the data. So I was most of all so surprised by the fact that it's really scientific. And
yes.
That was really, really powerful. And that was really powerful, and actually taught me I would need to go back to the movie and watch it and study like a study material, because there's so much data in there. And the third aspect is I'm really glad that they finally share some of the research, because I know when you are into Dr. Joe, you find a lot of videos online, and I know that the data has not yet been accessible to people, and sometimes like regarding academic credibility, it's like, how valid can it be if you don't share the data? So I think it's really good to finally get the research out there, to share the data and the results, so that also the skeptics and people who are just fact-based can finally see results that are just mind-blowing. And it was very invigorating. I loved it. Well, how did you like it? What was your first reaction watching and listening to it?
So my first thought, because I just went through the whole experience of trying to explain this world to my family so they would help me with my retreat ticket. I was just thinking, like, how nice to have this well-packaged, really professionally done documentary that I can share with people and just give them a solid introduction to Dr. Joe's work. And it's high level, but if you're used to watching science documentaries, which I am, I love science documentaries, then it's something you can wrap your head around. And even if you can't quite wrap your head around it, it's still like, it moves really well. It's edited really well. You can follow most of it. And so I just love that about it, that it's something that I can share with people, and just to help them understand what it is that I've gotten into, help them understand what it is that I'm doing at this retreat, and just help them understand like why it is that I'm just so invested in this work, So I really loved that about it. And my thoughts didn't go much further until I started seeing what other people were saying about it. And really for this whole last week, I've been like having arguments with people in my head, like when they come up with something like some sort of criticism, then it makes me realize like how emotionally attached I am to it, because I instantly get my ego bruised. I instantly am just like, what do you mean? Like I love this man, I love this work.
No, I feel you very much.
And so I'm trying to calm down, trying to see their point so that I can counteract it, so I can explain why it is that they're wrong and I'm right, like that's kind of how it feels. So one of the first things I saw, I'm gonna hit you with all of these things that I saw and get your reaction to it, and
yeah,
then
please go ahead.
Yeah, and then I'll follow up with my well thought out counter argument for each of them. Okay, so first thing I saw was, it was in a Joe Dispenza study group online, and a woman said, I feel like it was just an advertisement for the retreats. The whole time they were just trying to tell people that they had to go to the retreat to heal. So what would you say to that?
Well, first of all, I'm usually not the kind of person who responds to comments.
Yeah.
My second thought is, this is somebody sharing their emotional perception. That it was not a statement of, they said 10 times the retreat is the only way to do it, because because my third thought was, I think they didn't, I think you could count probably at two hands how often they said the word retreat. I think it was not really that often. It didn't appear to me in that way. So I think the fourth layer is, we've seen the world, what we see within. So and the fifth layer would be, I mean, what's the point? I would probably, if I would start a conversation, I would probably count how many times they showed a picture of a retreat and how many times they used the word retreat. And this would be like valid data that we could use. And I think it's very, very limited. And I would say, hey, okay, this has been like 90 minutes of material, and we've had the word retreat 7 times, and we've seen in total 60 seconds of a retreat. So I think it's most likely, compared to like 50 minutes solid science material and studies that have been showed, much less. So this is probably how I would respond if it would be a logical response. But most of the time it's just like an emotional point of view that's being conveyed, which is probably like, where's it coming from? That's probably what I would ask. Where's it coming from? How did you get the impression? And I guess at the end of the train of thought, the person would say like, I would like to believe in it, but I know I don't have the finances at this point in time, so I'm getting just a bit frustrated, because I think I need to go there because it's the most potent way to go. And now I feel like I'm being left out. This is just me having a guess.
Yes, okay. You're so smart. You're so smart. Yes, that was my my thought, like really, really similar line of thought. And one thing I thought of is like, well, it kind of makes sense that they're talking about all of this research in reference to the retreats, because that's where all of the research was done. They're not doing research on the people who are healing at home. They're doing research on people who are healing at the retreats. And then totally against her point is that they did feature that one woman who did heal at home. Like her whole story, the one who grew her thyroid back, she healed at home. And I guess that she did go to a retreat at some point, but her healing happened at home. And she talked about doing the meditations day after day and imagining that her thyroid was growing back. And so yeah, I didn't think that it was a particularly good point when I started thinking about it.
Yeah. FYI, there's like on Dr. Joe's YouTube channel, there's an entire playlist of people who have healed who healed at home before even attending a single retreat. So just as FYI who's watching this video, there's a playlist of people who healed at a retreat or post-at a retreat, or people who healed at home without ever attending a retreat. Because I think that would be actually quite interesting to know, like regarding the people who are practicing Dr. Joe, how many have went to a retreat, or how many, like you and I, have never went there even, and we're still doing the work. So, okay.
Yeah.
Please go ahead. There was, I think, a second person that you had a conversation with in your mind.
Yes. Well, I had an actual conversation with a friend of mine, and he is like, he's someone who he can get under my skin really easily.
Mm.
I care about him. I really I used to date him. Now we're very close friends. And so I guess it's like a little bit of a charged dynamic because of that. I think he's very smart. I really respect his opinion. He's very much a like he loves the ancient wisdom. Like if there's
Mm.
some kind of ancient wisdom on yoga or Buddhism and
Mm.
meditation, he's all about it. You know, he has all of these old books. Like the last book that I know of that he got really into was written 600 years ago. And you
Okay,
know,
that's
so
actually really interesting. Okay,
yeah,
interesting
yeah.
guy.
So so he tends to respect something when it's
Mm.
old and tried and true. The newer stuff, like the new paradigms, new ways of approaching things, he's just not really interested in it, you know.
Mm.
But I knew that he likes science documentaries, and I knew that he would be interested in this, and I really really wanted to know his opinion. And so he was definitely impressed, but he had some problems with it, and he talked to his sister who's kind of the same school of thought. Like she knows a lot about ancient teachings, a whole lot.
Mhm.
And so what she said according to him and what he agreed with, I want to know what your reaction to this is, because
Okay.
this one got me. Woo! Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, he said it sounds
That she
like
said, and now you're telling me.
so he said, it sounds like Joe Dispenza is teaching the same stuff that all of the yogis and the gurus have been teaching for hundreds of years, but he's trying to make money off of it.
Okay. Okay.
So he's figured out how to turn it into a cash cow, basically. But he's just using all the old stuff that everybody else already knew.
Okay, there's 2 points in the statement. The first point is they have deciphered the fact that Dr. Joe is talking about the Kundalini awakening, that he's leveraging Kundalini energy and the awakening, and he's just now measuring it in science, and he's using the language of quantum physics. I'm really glad that they realized it, because this is what he does to me as well. I see that Dr. Joe teaches the Kundalini awakening. He
Yes.
brings back ancient wisdom with breathwork and meditation. And in this case, like, he makes it accessible to the West by speaking the language the West actually understands, which is science. And he leverages the science that is the most accurate science that we have today on the planet in 2024, which is quantum physics. I admit I was also surprised that he did not talk about like the ancient studies, like I think not at all in the documentary. So I think there was a very conscious choice to say we're going to make a fully a science documentary, but he just makes it's just like Rick Braden. He translates ancient wisdom, ancient practices into science that people are like, oh, my brain understands it. Let's go for it. The second aspect regarding making money out of it is, let's face facts. It's actually what he has been capable of, translating ancient wisdom into quantum physics and making money out of it. Okay. Okay. The second thought is, now we actually deciphered it. Okay, now we're coming to a really fundamental belief set. Like, I know I had been one of these people who are like, I want to be a kind person and making money is a bad thing. So I know where that train of thought is coming from when you think, no, everything must be for free and I want to be a good person. But I have also experienced, when you live like it, you literally are not able to gain any power in the world or to have a larger impact, because you cannot set up a charity, you cannot set up a foundation. So I acknowledge the importance of being able to generate a certain amount of money to do something good. The third thing is, so it's a lot about the underlying belief. Okay, is he making money out of it? Yes, no. And what's your point of view? Do you think he should do it for free? Okay, you could say that as well. But I would argue the more money you have in the world, the more good you can do. And he's doing a lot of, I think also, I haven't delved into it, but I think he's doing a lot of free work and charity work probably as well. And with the research that he's funding. And the fourth aspect is, when you look at the world, the people who do have money, I think there's so many people who are generating money by hurting other people in like a really blunt way. But when you only give them medication that, like in, I think the third course, like leading course in deaths worldwide are the side effects of medication. So we talk about the fact, if you would be, like, medication is not as potent as we think it is. And most industries that generate a lot of money, they are on the cost of the true well-being of people. So I think, hey, I would love to have businesses who generate millions and billions and trillions of money by doing something good, by giving back the happiness, the love, the power back to people. And I'm happy to support these companies and say, like, I'm happy that somebody was able to find a business model, because I think more spiritual people of us, we struggle. We're like, I would like to be able to make a solid business case out of my ability, and I have the most respect for them doing it. And I wish that everybody who wants to do something good with our spiritual gifts is able to actually monetize it, so that we can express ourselves more and share more with others. That would be my response.
Yes, yes. Yeah, of course.
What was going through your head?
Well, first I was like, okay, so he's making money off of it. Therefore, what? Like, what is it? We had to get off the
That's
phone
implication.
after that. But when I got off the phone, I was like, so therefore what? What is it that you are suggesting here? Like but he decided to make money off of it. So therefore, what? Does that disqualify everything that he just showed you on the science documentary? Does that mean that he's a bad person and therefore we shouldn't follow his teachings? I mean, what is that? Like, what is it that he's kind of suggesting that, I mean, to me, and also knowing him, he's kind of suggesting that. And it's basically a totally new paradigm compared to a guru teaching it in an ashram to a small group of people and living on nothing and being separated from the material world. It's an entirely different paradigm. And so the way I would answer, like, he's making money off of it, and therefore what? Therefore, he has the money to hire scientists and prove all of this scientifically. Because he's making money at the retreats, he has the money to fund all of this. He has the money to create a feature-length documentary that's totally professional to get this word out to people. He has the ability to get the word out to not just the few people who are willing to give up their lives and come to the ashram in India, but he has the ability to get out to hundreds of thousands of people. This information, these processes and these techniques that are literally changing people's lives and healing their bodies, like literally changing the course of people's lives, And in right after that, I had a conversation over text with Christina, and she had just watched the documentary, and I wasn't talking about my conversation with my other friend at all. I was just getting her reaction to the whole thing. And she's definitely of the school of thought that there's nothing wrong with making money. And the more money you have, the more influence you have, the more comfort you have. I mean, you know how it is to be broke. It's like, I can be as spiritual as I want to be, but if I don't have enough money to drive to, put gas in my car and drive to the next town to go meet with people at a meditation group, then I have no power. I have no power. I have no influence.
Yes.
And if you have enough money to have a nice car and a nice house and nice clothes, then that gives you this confidence and really people take you more seriously, if you have a nice car and you have a nice clothes and, and you're healthy in your body, people listen to you and people take you more seriously. They respect you more. And so she's definitely of the same school of thought that there's nothing wrong with having money, that we're all children of God. We are all royalty. And all we have to do is just believe that we're worthy of it, Yeah. And so coming from the mindset of somebody like that, her reaction was, oh my God, the pharmaceutical companies are charging are making $100,000 off of these people, and all Joe Dispenza is charging is $2,500. It's like, that's like pennies compared to what the pharmaceutical companies are making. And she said, I understand why the whole thing was about science, because if he couldn't prove it scientifically, he would be killed. He would literally be murdered. Like, there's that much money in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm usually not a person who gets on my soapbox about this. She's a person who gets on her soapbox about it. She's written so many articles about this kind of thing, about like the evils in the pharmaceutical industry, and really, like, that's how it can get when there are billions of dollars at stake and there's a threat to it, that people will just like suddenly have an accident, suddenly die in a plane crash, or suddenly, like just mysteriously all of a sudden die because it's too much of a threat. So if he was reaching that many people and he didn't have the science to back it up, then he would be silenced. He would be totally silenced. He would be silenced somehow. He would be threatened, or he would be killed. I really believe that. Like, when she brought up that point, I was like, you are probably right.
Would you like to briefly go down the rabbit hole of the non-positive forces, the non-positive polarity in the world? Because I had no idea what Christina did. So maybe you'd like to share some of your thoughts or some of the things that you have learned through Christina's research that she did on some of the powers that are running our world, which are of a non-positive polarity. What's happening?
Well, like I said, it's not something I get on my soapbox about. It's not something that I have intentionally educated myself about, because I don't want to know more about the evil. I don't want to know more details about the evil. That to me does not make me feel empowered. But just from the information that has fallen across my lap, and just from what I've gathered, and what I know about people, is I think that in politics and in medicine and in business, that most people, almost everybody, truly believes that they're doing the best they can. And they believe that there is good in what they're doing. A lot of that is based on their programming, the beliefs that they have been programmed with. Like a doctor who's paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to medical school and has spent 10 years of their lives studying something. They have been programmed with a certain belief system, and they believe that what they're doing is the best way to help people, the best way to help people stay alive and stay healthy. And there may be some of them that are like, gosh, this chemotherapy is really making this patient more sick, and I wish there was another way. They may be thinking that, but they're so busy working 80 hours a week that they're not going to be researching and educating themselves about this stuff. Like, they're just doing the best they can. They really are. And so I do think that it must happen. It must happen that someone in a position of power is faced with a really hot ethical issue, where they realize that their decision is going to affect people in some sort of catastrophic way. And I think that they find themselves between a rock and a hard place, that they just don't, that it's like that there's no good decision. They both options totally suck, and they just go with the option that sucks less. And they may make their decision on behalf of money, because they want to be able to keep people in business, or they may make their decision based on what they think is best for people's health. But they're just limited in what they can do within the structures that they're working in. And I just think that it takes a very intelligent, free-thinking person to change established paradigms. Like, you have to be a very strong-willed, very free thinking person to change paradigms. And there just aren't that many of us out there who are willing to do that, especially
We're
people who are in
waking
a
up.
position of power.
We're waking up. And you just perfectly alluded to end on the note of this is why when chaos happens and systems break down, it is magic because we get free space that's now been created. When the old forcibly, without any alternative, is forced to come to an end, to crumble in whatever way or form, we now are forced to create something new and we have the space to do so. And I
Yeah.
really hope that this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I consciously choose it. We have a choice.
Yes. Yes. And there are people who are more asleep than humans have ever been, just with all the people staring at their screens and kids growing up without playing outside. And my kids included. My kids don't play outside like I did, or even my stepson who's 30. He played outside all the time compared to my kids. And so, so not to knock the parents who are letting their kids be on screens, because I'm totally one of them. But it's creating this society where there are people who are just so asleep, so completely asleep, like so unaware of their own bodies, so unaware of what's important and what's not important, totally detached from communities, detached from their family members. There's that going on, but then there's this counterforce with the magic of the internet, people who are educating themselves and finding out these incredible, amazing things. We have access to this life-changing information and world-changing information that we've never had before. And so there's this polarity that's developing. And it's already like things are already falling apart, things are already getting crazier, but I know that there are so many people that are like, they're basically becoming like Jedis on Star Wars. They're getting like so much control over their minds and therefore so much control over the world, over their personal worlds, that they have the potential to make the world into something that it's never been before in the most fantastic way.
There's so many nuances to it, so many thoughts. I would just like to share. So thank you so much for sharing. I resonate with observing a lot of these things myself. And to share with you one example of what incredible information you can find online. 2 days ago, I discovered an episode with back to Aubrey Marcus with a former advisor to several presidents. Her name is Pippa Mergram or something. And I didn't realize that she shared that apparently it just didn't hit the media so much. I'm just gonna drop it. Come on, let's just drop the kind of stuff. I had not been into ETs until last year or half a year ago. And I discovered, as an FYI, a YouTube channel. Her name is Elizabeth April, and she is clairvoyant. She can do astral traveling and remote viewing. And she was the first person who talked about for example, Galactic Federation of Flight. And I was like, this is like sci-fi. Come on, guys. This is conspiracy. This can't be a thing at all. I have to share with you. Over the last months, I discovered, for example, also Dr. John Churchill. When you listen to his kind of podcast, he is a psychologist, but he also went to ancient wisdom. He's bringing it together, and he just drops like somewhere in a 2-hour episode, like the Federation. And I'm like, I know what you're talking about. So you got to be kidding me. You understand the different layers of Buddha consciousness, and you just dropped the Galactic Federation of Light and the Pleiadians. I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to accept the fact that this might be a thing. And so back to Elizabeth April, she said that over the next years there will be like a lot of whistleblowers coming forward and share some things that had happened, and that yes, there had been real, let's say, like what's the best word for UFO? Like there had been UFOs been seen, but there's also like a lot of fake things. Like literally there had been strategic initiatives where there had been fake objects been putting up there as well. So there's like this entire layer of things that had been happening for real, which we had not been informed about, and then a layer of where there had been things created for us to create a certain narrative whatsoever. And I was like, this is so crazy. But she said a lot of people will come forward, whistleblowers. Let's just wait until 2030. And I was like, okay, let's wait until 2030. So 2 days ago, I discovered this interview with this former advisor to several presidents. And when you listen to her, Pippa Mergram, I think it is, Mergran, she's absolutely educated. She went to Ivy League universities. Her father was already an advisor to President Nixon, I think. So she grew up with understanding the Oval Office as a little child. She's absolutely educated. She would have never believed this kind of stuff until about a year ago, when I don't know exactly how it happened. It became evident that, for example, in the entire budget that the US military has, about $1 trillion, $1 trillion per year. Okay? $1 trillion per year. Just disappeared for projects nobody has an idea about where they're going to. So there had been now this case opened, I think, in Congress, etc., where it's like, we want to know where these $1 trillion every single year are going to. The point is people cannot share because it's actually just classified. Everything is classified. So $1 trillion are going to classified projects. So there's a lot of things that need to happen in order to protect all of these people that they are able to come forward. But what has happened already, some people have testified in Congress of the highest level of the US military that yes, in just one single document, it's proven that there is non-human intelligence. And you know, like you just drop it like this, but when someone like this uses this word 20 times in a single article, it's like, okay, so we're really talking about the fact we have recorded with our incredible technology nowadays, which is more precise than ever before in our modern world, that there is non-human intelligence which we are able to perceive nowadays on Earth or around Earth. I was like, okay, so it was like so clear that we are on the brink of getting information out there. And apparently I am still looking for this piece of information that I can listen to, because maybe I've been recorded what happened in this hearing, because apparently so that you must imagine, so these super serious guys from military, they were like, yes, okay, yeah, we know there's non-human intelligence, we know, yes. And the media was practically like, no, you can't be for real, right? Like, this can't be. So now there's this crazy narrative where when people will hear the information, we're like, you got to be kidding me. Because we had been made to believe for so long there's only us. There is no extraterrestrial stuff. That even when people who will have the proof and tell us, yes, it's the case, we'll be like, no, I don't believe you anymore. Because you told me for 50 years that it's not there. I can't believe you, sir. I realize there will be a big gap happening when these things unfold regarding the people who are open-minded enough. And I think this is one of the big benefits we have with Gen Z. They're like, you know what? Actually, I don't care. There can be loads of planets with loads of people. I'm still happy in metaverse, so go ahead. Like, there will be so many people who are literally open-minded enough or just don't care at all that they're like, go about it. I think it's like rather generations above who like, I can't handle it because it's so against my understanding what I've been told to believe in my narrative. And that kind of struck me very, very deep. Because I wanted to believe that this kind of remote viewing girl was kind of like, no, she's not a real deal. But when you listen to her, she has so much understanding on the quantum physics. Now, when political advisors start to come forward with this stuff, it's just like, okay, there will be so much happening until 2030 and then beyond. Have we ever, by the way, talked about the timelines, 3D to 5D before?
No, but I don't think so. But I want to say a couple things about what you were talking about.
Please.
About ETs. First thing I want to say that came to mind is, do you know about the radio broadcast that happened? I want to say it was in the 50s sometimes, when a very famous radio broadcaster named Orson Welles, he did a story. I mean, he broadcasted a story, and I think it was called War of the Worlds. And he didn't say that it was a story. He basically just said, like, he just started in as if it was a news report,
yes,
saying that the world had been invaded by aliens. And so, you know this story?
Yeah, I actually had it in university. It's so interesting.
Yes. And so chaos ensued. I mean, people flipped out, totally flipped out. They just lost their minds. They started, like just trying to flee, and or they went into hiding, and it was mass chaos. And I don't know how long that chaos lasted. I don't know if it was like a day or a few hours or a few days. I don't know. I'm not sure of the details of the story, but it just goes to show how much people were not ready for that idea at all. And even when I was a kid, it was something that it was too far-fetched. It was before there were all these cable documentaries and all of these people just able to share whatever information they have or whatever information they believe there, when there wasn't that outlet. It was way too far-fetched. And so I definitely grew up in a world where anybody who talked about aliens was like so not accepted, like just so my dad's actually one of the first people that I heard like really get into alien shows on cable. And I was like, he's crazy, I was just like, oh, just more reason to believe that my dad's crazy. And so, but now I've seen enough that I totally believe that there are aliens living among us, and I have a good friend who is way, way, way into it. He does I forget. I so wish I could remember what it's called, but there's a protocol that people use to try to contact aliens.
Okay.
And it's like this tried and true protocol that a lot of people have tried and say that it works. And it's like Rick something. I don't know. It's the name of the protocol is the name of the man who created it. But he uses this protocol, and he has a UFO meditation group, and they go out to remote locations and they all meditate. And it's like a series of steps that they go through. It's a particular kind of meditation, and it's prayers, and it's like getting themselves in the right mindset leading up to the day of the meditation. And he says that they have attracted many things. They'll see lights in the sky. They see UFOs when they do it, and that in the sightings will continue for days after the meditation. And so he is the one who told me about the whistleblowers who are already coming out, and because the files were declassified in the last couple of years, and so it's possible for people who want to research all of this stuff. Like you and I could go get online and research all of these declassified things if we wanted to. I'm not into it. I'm just like, yeah, sure, that's going on, whatever. And but he's really into it. I'm trying to, as we're mentioning all these people's names, I'm trying to make a list, because in the description of this video, I want to put links to things. And so when you were talking about all of that, the Aubrey Marcus, you mentioned a few names. And so I'm going to ask you about that later, ask you to send it to me.
Let me just send over the recording later, and I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to write down all the different notes and maybe send over the specific links to each video. I'm happy to do that.
Yes.
I love that. And just as the last note to finish off with the extraterrestrial, or rather interterrestrial, right? Consciousness. It's all about the frequency. That's the point. I just listened to somebody else. It's like, they are all among us. By the way, so many of us have part of their DNA, but this is like way too much for this podcast. But we are not just pure human. We have specific DNA in us. But that's a different conversation. So the point is that already here, it's just for us to raise our vibration to a certain level that we're able to perceive them. So that is like really the point. And when you talked about the fact that there have been and still are a lot of people who are not ready, and who would also say like, I don't want to even be ready to live in that kind of paradigm. My first thought was like, I think if you are in that vibration, you are pretty low vibrational, very dense, and in 3D in the way that your perception works. I think that most people would even not be able to perceive them. I'm just going to drop it, because I think there's such a discrepancy, because the much your vibration rises, the more you're able to perceive it at all. I think it was one last thought that was interesting. Yeah, so much for it is, etc. And what's happening. Wow, what?
No, I totally agree with you that I got myself all worked up, and now I'm coughing. But I totally agree with you about the vibration thing. And I think that concept could be applied to so many different things. Like we can't access money if we're not at the right vibration. We can't access aliens if we're not at the right vibration. We can't access wealthy, healthy, gorgeous men who with open hearts if we're not at the right vibration.
Why did you
know
just kill me for a second?
It's all like our entire experience is all vibration. So yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And I haven't heard that. But it's such an excellent point. Like if somebody's not ready for it, then they probably won't have any alien problems in their life.
And I remember or encounter or enrichment, because there's actually such pure beings and they help us to actually raise the vibration. It just depends on what you tune into. And that also reminded me of the second aspect I really wanted to share, because this is something that's important for whether you're interested in any higher or let's say non-physical consciousness, also when you're interested in spirits, etc. Like one thing I discovered like is so important, because we can consciously open up our channel at any time. And it's so important, I learned, to be conscious what frequency you are being tuned into. Because I'm going to confess at this point in time, when I started doing this without guidance, I was still acting from a low vibrational place of guilt and shame, that I'm conscious that the beings in consciousness I connected with, they were not the purest of light. They were not the purest of love. And so one thing I really want to say is, whoever you are, whenever you say like, I want to get in touch, whether it's my spirit guides or some other consciousness or people from other past lifetimes or extraterrestrials, it's so important that you are aware your frequency is a vibrational match to what you tune into. And when you want, let's say, you might feel very low vibrational, but you still want higher guidance, then you can at least set the intention to say, okay, I hereby allow only the purest of love to come into. And I practically forbid everything else to enter me. Or when someone or something is getting in touch with you, because sometimes you get a hint where you're like, okay, I'm not alone, I perceive a consciousness. You literally get to test them. That's the very first thing. Because sometimes the dark forces, they show up as an ascended master, and then they act as if they're super wise and tell you have so much to give. But literally, it's darkness that also plays the tricks. You get to tell them, whoever's showing up, let me feel your unconditional love. That is practically the thing you should do whenever you perceive anything at all, so that you ensure you're only letting good energy. And when it's a pure being, whether it's an angel, whether it's a spirit guide, like a deceased beloved one, etc., and you feel the loving energy, you're like, okay, I allow you in, I listen to you. But when you feel like anything else, it's like, okay, I demand you to leave. Like that's one thing I really wanted to share, because I've been on the brink of it. It's the same with ETs, etc. There is also dark forces. Like it's really important. Like when you go into the woods, you're like, I just want to be with the ETs, but I hate humanity. Well, you're gonna tune into that kind of frequency as well. Yeah. So it's just the last thing. You are really in charge of your energy, and you get to choose what you let in and not, and you get to demand somebody and even non-physical beings to let you feel that vibration. That was something I wanted to say. Sorry, why am I telling this a psychic? Because you have it all written down, but it's something I learned my lesson.
Yeah,
to protect your energy consciously.
And that wisdom, it's so smart. That wisdom applies to so many things.
People as well.
Yeah. People. Yes. I just think about like ex-boyfriends, like an ex-boyfriend calling you up. Like if you just have in your mind and have in your heart, I only receive unconditional love from you. Like I'm not gonna get back into old stories. I'm not gonna see your darkness. I only perceive unconditional love from you. Like what a powerful thing. And it's the same thing with the people's reactions to the Joe Dispenza documentary. Like what that they are revealing their prejudice against money and people with money. They're revealing their own insecurities about money. They're revealing their own lack of faith in a higher power. Like it's everything that they are seeing. It's just a reflection on them.
Yeah, that was just so perfect. As within, so without. We're just in the world, what's within us. And I know it's so hard to acknowledge, because you're like, oh, I think that person is so angry. And then you're like, why am I thinking that person's angry? What about me is actually angry? It's so crazy. But let's continue. I think there had been like maybe there might have been one last person that you had in mind where you were like, okay, let's go through the arguments. And I think we finally closed the loop, because we've done two people so far.
Mm-hmm. Well, there were a lot of things that I came up against that I had to go through in my head, but but one that really, really got to me
Mm-hmm.
was someone made a post and said, about how much should I expect to spend on a retreat in total, like with travel and travel expenses and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
in this person who posted it said, it's a dream of mine. I want to start saving for it. And like the second comment that was on there was, uh, it's too expensive for normal people. Like
Okay.
basically just if you're normal, don't even don't even dream of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then a couple people like, my first thought was like, how long you been doing this work? Like, do you know, like, do you know how much like that statement is so against what it is that we're all learning and what it is that we're all trying to support each other in
Yeah.
believing? And so, so a couple people in the nicest way possible were trying to say, that's not true. There are plenty of normal people at the retreats, and it's all a matter of mindset. And it's worth every penny, and they're just like trying to present a counter argument. And there were that thread kind of exploded. There were a lot of people, and it ended
Mm.
up being this like a money battle where
Wow.
people who perceived that they did not have the means to pay for a retreat, they were
Mm.
arguing on behalf of their own limitations, as Abraham Hicks would say. They
Mm.
were so, I mean, and they were digging their heels in. They were saying, "No, I'm living on a pension. There's no way," And I mean, they were so sensitive about it. So
Oh,
sensitive.
oh, I know.
And
It
me,
just reminds me. It just reminds me of something. I don't know who said it, but it's literally the ego. I think it might have been even Dr. Joe Dispenza who talked about the fact, the ego, it just wants to be so special. It wants to be either like the best winner in the entire world, or it wants to be like the greatest victim. So my weekend has been like, you think your headache is sick, just know how bad I feel. Like it just reminds me exactly of this thing. So it's just about the response of the ego. It just the
yes.
ego wants to be special in any way and form, and judgment is part of the ego.
Yeah,
It's
and the ego wants
but
to
it's
be
very
right.
interesting that these people also discovered the documentary. Like that's one thing I found really interesting, that it also reached people who are in a low vibrational state in terms of, I mean, that is a state of internal suffering, of unworthiness and limitations, and being like, I'm not really happy with the limited resources I have, and I don't believe that I can change it. I mean, this is literally the space where you're coming from, which is like, I just want to give you a hug. I know how it feels, and I just want to give you a hug, because by living in that state without changing it, it literally will not change, most
Mhm.
likely. Um,
Yes.
so it's sorry, I was just jumping in, but it's so interesting. It completely reminded me of this pattern. It's just like, yeah, wow. So,
I think it really struck a chord with me because that's been really my biggest issue, and it's the issue that persists. And I have just done such deliberate work to turn around my mindset of what I
mm,
think is possible.
yeah.
And I know that the fact that I am going to retreat and I have gotten myself
Which is a high five
accredited.
moment, by the way, the way how you made
I
it possible, by the way.
Yes, yes. I mean, just the way that the solution came to me piece by piece, and that, and it was all my family's money that has paid for it. But and and so people will say like, but your family has money. But for no reason would I believe that I had access to any of that money. I mean, I think it was after my husband died 5 years ago. um, I asked my mom for $300 to pay my electric bill. My electricity was off. It was it was freezing outside. It was like my house was like getting so
Oh,
cold. I have electric heat. My house was getting so cold. My daughter was sick with a fever, And I asked my mom for $300 to get my electricity turned back on, and she flipped out on me. Totally, like just tore me a new one in an email about how she's worked so hard for her money, and why do I think that I should have access to it? And your husband died 9 months ago. Why don't you get your shit together? I mean, it was like it was awful. It was awful. And so yes, there's some money in my family, but they don't touch it and they're not going to give it to anybody. It's like it, there's no reason in the world why I would have thought that money could ever be within my reach for any of my needs.
And the one thing I just really want to say is like, it hurts me so much to hear how much money scarcity is predominant also in the good, like the safe countries, like in America, the West.
Oh, yeah.
Because what we hear is, do you hear how thin the ice is of living on my limit of tolerance, of empathy, of patience to just get by when somebody asks a little bit more because I'm operating on the belief system, I need to suffer for my money. I need to do whatever's possible. Like when somebody else wants to get money without needing to suffer for it, you just completely freak out. Like it hurts me because I think, I know it's part of the programming, and it hurts me how many of us have accepted this. And I really want this paradigm to be one of the first ones to flip in the new age that we are beginning. Well, people literally understand it had been a lie all along that I would need to suffer in order to get money.
Yes.
Because I think this is one of the biggest lies and also one of the hardest ones to let go. This had been a personal battle for me for a very, 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 very long time. But I think it's not right. It's not right to say you need to suffer to get money, and also
and
just
only the people who have suffered are the ones who deserve it. Like that's the partner belief to it. Like
based on the belief I need to become worthy. Do you hear that? That is part of the ego. That's part of the trap that's being looped into. Like it's conditional that I'm worthy of something. And in order to become worthy of having money, which is just helping me to be mediocre, for example, or getting by, I need to suffer. It's conditional. So, and I think this is, I just really want to see this entire paradigm brittle and break away, because sometimes I think there's people, they have so much money. They have so much money. They have so much money. And they know people have just as much money. And if you can just gift each other a gift, like for an evening for five, you go to a dinner of a friend, you just bring a gift for, I don't know, like $500, $1,000 just for having a dinner together. And you're like, yeah, who cares? Like we just do that. And I really wish that some of these resources would be more accessible to each other. And also to come full circle, I think if you truly, I'm just thinking of the people who might respond in the threat of, it's interesting, they watch a documentary, they might have been following even his work for quite some time, possibly, and they're still in the place where they're like, I don't think I can change. I truly have the deep conviction, if I decided today, with all of my being, I want to go to the next retreat, and I will need, let's say, $5,000 to cover everything, or $8,000 because I traveled there from the other end of the world, I am 100% convinced if I would go to, let's say, an elderly home for wealthy people, and I figure out where the closest one would be of my home location, and I would go there, I would call up the manager, be like, hey, I really need some money. I'm really looking for a lovely elderly person who wants to help out a woman who has 3 children. I'm completely sick. I really want to get back on track. I would love to go there to be my highest self and to help my children and to live a better life. Can I please come on the weekend to just talk to some of your residents? I'm sure you would get access to this. And if you stay there for 1 to 2 days and speak with these people who do have the money, if you really care, somebody will be generous enough and will give you a check and be like, okay, what's the bank account? I'm going to send you over 8,000 because I really have it. And I'm happy to do something good. And please do me a favor, send me some pictures of the retreat and your children. Like there is still good people. There is good people. It's about, do you truly want it? And do you allow yourself to attract it in whatever way? So that was just one thing I also wanted to share, because I think that I truly believe that there's also good people with money. And if you truly want something, you can get in touch with them.
Yes.
Okay, that was the last thing.
Yes. And I I just think of how the way that we look at money and the way that we deal with money, the way we trade money, the way, what we exchange money for, that we have, I mean, there was a time that money didn't exist. There was a long time, for the better part of human history, money did not exist. It was just trading. Like, I have this, you have this, do you want to trade it? What's equal? And it was all just kind of perception, and there were people who had more. There were people who were more wealthy and they had more, and they figured out, because of their vibration, basically, because their belief system, they were able to have more than other people. And so, so it's like, we, we see it as something so different than what is actually going on. And when you just think of like what the nature of reality is, that if we're just hunters and gatherers and living in harmony with nature, nature's doing its thing, we're doing our thing, there's more than enough food, like just growing wild, more than enough animals to slaughter and to kill, so that people can eat the animals. There's more than enough water, and people would just naturally live near water, and animals would naturally live near water, because everybody needs water. And in just the way that a single acorn can grow an entire oak tree that is covered with hundreds of acorns, and it spits out hundreds and thousands of acorns every single year, year after year after year. It's like that's the nature of reality.
I want to be an acorn tree. I like that.
It's like that is, and think of the way a human sperm and a human egg come together, and how microscopically small that is. And the cells divide and divide and divide and become a full human over time. And, over really just 9 months, I mean, that's a short period of time. And so that is the nature. That's the way that creation is. It like is not only abundant, it's like ridiculously abundant, ridiculously, and that's what's natural.
These are really good words. Ridiculously abundant.
Yes.
Ridiculously abundant. Oh, that feels really good. That's really, this might have come from Abraham Hicks, and you might have absorbed it. Like, ridiculously abundant. That nearly sounds like her.
I don't know if I have heard her talk about that specifically, but that is.
Have you ever been on a ship, a cruise with Abraham Hicks before?
You did?
No, I've been asking you whether you have joined one of them.
Oh, no, I didn't go on the cruise. I did see her speak in Dallas. And it was when my husband was sick. We paid for just me to go. He wasn't able to go. We would have gotten a ticket for him, but by the time I was able to go, or by the time the date came around, he wasn't really like physically well enough to even want to, even feel like, yeah, I'm going to sit there in a chair for 3 hours in a crowd of people. Like, that just sounded awful to him, at that time. But we were listening to Abraham Hicks a lot when he was sick, a whole lot. And so that was, that was a really special thing that I was able to do. She came to Dallas in 2018.
Oh. I just actually discovered my Abraham Hicks card today. There's an affirmation box of hers, which is asking and it's being given, asking it's given. So funny that we talk about it again.
Yeah, I have that book. I think it's the only Abraham Hicks book that I have. It's a good one.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, the idea of nature being ridiculously abundant, it was kind of a combination of things. It actually, when I was listening to a Joe Dispenza meditation of the one synchronizing your energy to abundance, I love that one. And it was a vision that came to me. He said, when he says to tune in with the energy of abundance, a vision that came to me in the meditation was of the redwood forest in California. It's like the tallest trees in the country, and and I was just thinking like, wow, that's abundant. Like that's what abundance looks like, like that is the natural, effortless abundance. Nobody had to
Mm.
try to make that happen. Like it just happened so naturally. So
Mm.
I've held that image in my mind when I think of abundance. And then it was I made a little video about tuning in with the energy of abundance because I had been practicing a new tool, and it just naturally unfolded into two new clients and a bunch of money
Mm.
showing up in my account that I wasn't expecting for another couple months, and it was just amazing. And so I did a little video about it, and in one of the people who follows me on YouTube put a comment on there and said, abundance is the natural effect of creation. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are so.
Oh,
So it's like it
I'm
just clicked
so
with me. Like, yes,
this,
that's what happens
that's
naturally.
that is this. Are you aware how powerful this comment is? Literally, because one of the things when I was around 21, I would say, that really struck me was like, how can I, sorry, like my background in money unworthiness, I've went through so many layers, trust me.
Oh,
And
me
one of
too.
them,
Me too. I can't even tell my story. Like I would lose all credibility if I told my story. I'm going to wait until my story is done and then I'll tell
you're
you
gonna
the
wait until you hit
story.
a big milestone. You're like, hey guys, I just became a
Yes, yeah,
millionaire by doing
like this
psychic
is where I
readings.
came from.
FYI. Anyway, so one of the things that I really that was holding me back as a conscious thought was like, how can I, like, I sound so stupid, but I was like, I was literally scared if I made money that I was taking it away somewhere else. Like this is how limited mindset can actually get. And I asked myself, okay, where is money coming from? Like, how is money being created? And I remember I had been speaking in London with a investment banker, but he kind of like he didn't drop the real stuff, like in hindsight. I realized it. But anyways, I realized literally money is on one hand just created when the government needs it, and they just print, whether it's digitally or physically, they just print it. You're like, okay, there had been literally no additional value provided in the entire universe, or in the world at least, and it had been printed. And yes, as a result, my money just lost 50% of its value. Great. But the other aspect is exactly how, because when I thought of, okay, how does, for example, a startup become a unicorn? Like, how come that suddenly there was a 1 billion evaluation? Where did the worth come from? That was always a question I had, because it was like, are we taking it away somewhere? Um, and I think there's a yes and no to it. It really depends on the specific case. And one of the answers was like, no, you literally created new value. That's the point. This is where also money is coming from, because you are creating new value. Of course, it depends on whether there is new money being printed. But at the end of the day, I think I find it very liberating when you're like, oh, abundance. Money is a natural result of the creation process. It's not a limited resource. I'm just taking it away from somebody else. Hey, this is hi to all the empaths who are scared to take money away from somebody. But no, I've just created value. I've created something good in the world. And the money, the abundance is a result. Thank you. I think this is so, so, so powerful, this comment, because it is liberating to say, oh, it's good, it's okay. I actually like to create and get money as a result. That is a really nice way to go about it.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
then like with Joe Dispenza, like why shouldn't he be making so much money when he is
Mm.
providing that kind of value to the world? And not only does he have a team of scientists, he has a staff of 100 people at every retreat helping and just doing everything like taking care of all problems that all people have. They've got 2,000 people at some of those retreats. And in Switzerland, they had 8,000 people. Imagine the staff that it took.
Oh my goodness,
To,
imagine the energy in the room.
I know,
Oh,
could you?
that's so
It's
good.
just crazy, so crazy. And and so, why if he has a staff of 100 people, why should they pay their own travel expenses? Why should they have to pay for their own hotel rooms? Like that money has got to go somewhere to create this amazing thing, and they are providing so much value. And you can't just get a volunteer from a temp agency. Like you've got to get, like you have to you have to have employees, a staff that are invested in the work, that are invested in everything that he's doing. And yes, they should be compensated really well for being a person who can do that job. They should be able to pay their bills. They should be able to take care of their families. And if they're traveling all over the place, they should have a spouse at home with the kids who, and who like has their needs provided for. And just the idea that people should scrape, just like scrape by and just to be a good person, like that's bullshit. It makes me mad, makes me want to curse, makes me want to say bad words.
There's no need to say these words, because ultimately it's just a reflection that these people themselves think, I don't deserve to make money for providing spiritual work, which is a belief that if you choose to, you can reverse it. But this is where it's coming from, because it's somewhere on the inside.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. I see that you're losing light over there.
I've sent all my light over to you and you're just radiant. Really. I just thought it throughout the conversation. I was like, you look so beautiful.
Oh, and so do you.
Suits you absolutely fantastically. It's so beautiful. And thank you for the conversation. Like, I really hope that guys give it a comment and a like if you enjoyed it, because I truly enjoyed speaking with you. Like the bouquet and range of topics today from,
yeah,
thank you. I did not expect it. I really loved it. It was so invigorating.
Me too. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that we got deep on the documentary, that we were able to share our thoughts on that. And then we got deep on so many other things, Yeah, this is a really good talk. I had so much fun.
Thank you. Me too. We're going to do it again soon. And guys, drop a comment if what kind of topics you'd like us to talk about, or whether there's a favorite meditation from Dr. Joe, for example, that you would like us to do. I think we're gonna incorporate it, right?
Oh, you're such a good YouTuber. Look at you.
I'm just supporting you to grow your channel and subscribe to Queen.
Speaking of which, this is an argument. I know we're supposed to be wrapping it up. This is a really good argument that a counter argument that I came up with. When you look at Dr. Joe's work, he is the least salesy spiritual teacher out there. I swear, he's never talking about the retreats on his talks. He's in the YouTube descriptions. All there is links to his social media. There might be a link to his website sometimes, but he's not saying we've got a retreat coming up, make sure to grab your ticket. Like that's just, the coaches do that all the time. There's not a single bit of that ever. He is so not salesy. Like he just wants to get the information out there. And other than the retreat, I swear to you, I have not spent $1 on this work. All of the meditations have been shared with me by people I'm meditating with, and I've just collected them over the months. And in everything that you can go to the library and read his books. Like you can get deep into his work without spending a single dollar. And he wants it to be that way. But he does have to pay the scientists, and he does have to pay his staff, and he does deserve to be well compensated,
I love it. And 2 last thoughts. First and foremost, on YouTube, there are 2 of his books free as audiobooks. It's You're the Placebo and Becoming Supernatural. You can actually find them as free audiobooks on YouTube. And the other aspect, I just remember somebody shared with me that even when you go to India, to an ashram, are you aware how much money they make every single day based on donations? I'm just going to drop it at this point in time. Like, we're not talking about the fact that charity is just charity. I'm talking about the fact that charity sometimes makes a lot of money. And I'm going to go one step further. I'm just going to share it. Because I discovered somewhere, shared by a contact of mine, that one of craziest story ever, but a charity, it's a UK-based charity, it's religion-based. They seem to do charity work, being religious, but ultimately they have a multi-million valuation. They own various, in like high-end buildings in the city, and you know what is being built on? I'm sorry, I'm gonna drop it here. It's practically built on that they putting their own people on the street to be beggars. I'm gonna drop it. There are certain links regarding human trafficking and charities where we have no idea about them. So I really just encourage you, if you are spiritual and you're conscious, allow yourself to make money that you can attract it. to change the paradigm, because there's so much shade that we had been like, there's so many veils that we had been told not to see. And I was shocked when I learned it. And it was
Yeah.
from somebody who's doing like incredible humanitarian work. She received awards. She had been working with government. She has like, she's a diplomat. She's incredible. So I know this is such valid information. And I was like, jaw drop. So much about that.
Hmm.
It's very, very, very valid. And don't think, no, it's great to give away for free, but it's also okay to say it's okay. We live in a world with money and we make money out of it for
Yes.
doing something good. I mean, that's the greatest way, right? To do
Yeah.
something good, to
Yeah.
provide something well. Okay. Ah, so much about that. Another note. Thank you, Queen. Ah, thank you, my love.
It has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your beautiful energy. Thank you for your
Oh,
intelligence and all of
oh,
your input. It's
thank
wonderful.
you. Vice versa. Thank you so much for who you are. Thank
Mhm.
you. Oh, my love.